And now you can all see it in presentation mode, right? Okay, so I'm using two screens, and whenever I look at you, I look up. Whenever it seems like I look at you, I look at the presentation. So the first talk is going to be short and quick, I think. I'm going to give you a, well, this slide is an overview of the workshop. And then I'll give you a very quick overview of the tools that we're using. And that will pretty much be it. I'll show you how we create a study without going into the programming yet. And then we'll have an exercise. So that's the overview of the workshop, right? So I'm going to explain how to use the researcher dashboard, which is a web application that we use in order to create studies. And then we'll be teaching you how to create studies with Minno, which Minno is the name of our technology. And that will happen in all the other talks. I will only show you a very, very simple, well, a few simple things how to create studies. That's what I'm going to show you. So first, I'll explain a little bit about what Minno is. Then I will show you the researcher dashboard. I'll show you how we create a study. And then you'll have a very simple demonstration exercise. We're going to have a few different exercises in this workshop. And the first one will be mostly exercise in exercising. We're going to see how it works. I'm going to divide you to break rooms, and we're going to see whether it works good enough for us or whether we need to change something. Okay, so Minno is the name of, I guess, at the beginning it was the name of the player that we use. That's what you see in the bottom of this slide. We created that in order to run web studies online. As you know, that's what we do. We run web studies online. And then after we had the player, we also added the other components, and we also called them Minno. So the researcher dashboard is also called Minno, and the server that the researcher dashboard uses is also the Minno server. And Elad, which is the other person who's going to give talks in this workshop, he's going to talk mostly about the Minno player and how we create studies with Minno player. And I'm going to present the researcher dashboard. Before that, I should tell you a little bit more about Minno. And you can use Minno to run web studies in many different contexts. So we created that in order to create and run the demonstration studies that you know the IIT studies, and also the research pool studies. And the research pool is just a section that we use in which many volunteers register to the website, and then they can experience implicit social cognition studies that we use in order to increase our understanding and our expertise in implicit social cognition, and then it can inform us when we update the demo studies. It's also being used in PIMH, Project Implicit Mental Health, but you can also use it to run mTurk studies, prolific studies, SONA studies, and the reason is simply that it provides you a link, and with that link you can launch studies, and they run on the participant's browser. And that's what you need in order to run mTurk studies or prolific study or SONA studies. So people have done that, and we could help anyone who wants to use Minno in order to run studies on mTurk, prolific, or SONA. You can also integrate Minno with Qualtrics. I guess that some of you know Qualtrics, some of you have used Qualtrics. You know, it's used mainly for questionnaires, but you can also add JavaScript code, and that JavaScript code can be Minno. So you can run IIT on Qualtrics using the same code that we use in Project Implicit's website, and you can really create whatever reaction time task you want and put it on Qualtrics. If any of you know of Pavlovia, it's a server that was developed and is used mainly by people who use PsychoPy, the web version of PsychoPy. You can use that server and that website also to run Minno studies. So we also have an integration with that. Another thing that you can do, you can take everything that we've done and you can install that on your own server. So if you have a server on your university or just on the cloud, you can install the researcher dashboard and then run studies and conduct research with no relation to project implicit. It's just whatever we created is open code and is free software that everyone can use. Let's see the researcher dashboard. Before that, are there any questions? None at all. Okay. So this is the researcher dashboard, and I hope that all of you have accounts on the researcher dashboard. If you don't have an account and you want to participate in the exercises, please let me know by the end of this talk. Ronen, who is the programmer who developed most of the this application, the researcher dashboard, is going to come just before the exercise, and then if there are any problems with your account, he can help you. So here what you see, sorry? No, okay. So here what you see, usually when you log into the researcher dashboard, you see all your studies, and you can see I've been here a while, so I have many of those. The easiest thing to do is to sort by last changed, because then you see the last study that you've been working on. That's what I always do. Of course, you can also search, if you want to see all my AMP, it's Hebrew, all my AMP studies, then here are a bunch of them. But this workshop IAT1 is the name of the study that you'll be surprised, but I prepared for this workshop. So let's go into this study. I can do a bunch of stuff using this action here, but we also have all of these actions in the menu, so we'll see them later. So, So let's go into the study. That's the view of a study. And what you see on the left side are all the files that are used in this study. And on the right side, you're going to see the files if I click them. So let's click on this commit.js. And that's really a questionnaire file that we use. Well, you'll see what we use it for. The consent is another questionnaire. This questionnaire we just asked the participants, do you agree to participate or not? You can see the briefing, explicit.js, that's another questionnaire that we're going to see shortly. And these are simply all the tasks that you have here, like the instruction tasks. And we'll go over some of the files shortly. Before that, let me show you this file. You see that, the expt file, that's how I call it. I think we used to call it the experiment file. It always have this this format, the name of the study, .expt.xml. And this is really something that was left over from the previous way that we used to run studies. The expt file used to be a very important file. Today, we only use it to launch the study. So the only thing that's really important here is the first line. And you can see that there is an ID. That's the study ID. In this case, yba.ybalab.workshop1. So the format that I use and recommend is first my username, then the lab that I'm affiliated with, and then the name of the study. Now, this study ID is going to be used when you download the data. You need to type the study ID when you want to download the data. So you're going to copy that and paste it to wherever you need, and I'm going to show you where to paste it shortly. One important thing to know about it is that it has to start with your username. If you want to have access to the data, then you need it to start with your username, because currently the only way to get access to the data without some help from other people is to simply start the study ID with your username. So remember to always do that. And also remember always to change the study ID, because if you use the same study ID that you already used, then when you're going to download the data, you're going to download all the data of the previous study, and it's going to be a mess for, I think, also other reasons. So remember always to change this study ID. Now, what it does today is always run the file that you see here, mgr.js, which is the manager file. MGR is my abbreviation for the manager file. You can change the name, and then you'll have to change the name here. So I never do that. And that's the manager file. And what it does, I'm going to talk about it more in my next talk, which is in a few hours. But in general, what it does, it organizes the whole study. So it defines all the tasks that you want to run and also the sequence of the task. You can see here code, and currently some of you don't know what it means. I mean, don't know coding, I guess, and that's fine. But let's have a look. In any case, you can see that there is something that is called API.add_tasks sets, which is really just the way that we define tasks. And there's a bunch of information here. You really don't need that currently. Don't need to understand that currently. Just you just need to know that it defines tasks that are going to run in this study. And then there is another important line, which is API.add_sequence. And that's the way that we define the sequence. So I first define the tasks. So now we can think, okay, we have 7 tasks in this study. And then I need to say what comes first. So that's what I do here. I add a sequence and I can define the sequence. And as you can see, it's not just a list of the names of the tasks. There is some complication here, and you'll learn about it today, about how to define the sequence. Currently, all that you need to know is that it's defined here, and then I can run the study. So let's see how we run a study. One thing that we can do is go to the EXPT file and press play. Now I need you to tell me, do you see the study now? Okay, because it opened a new tab. And you can see that we are in the development environment. Let me close that. And there's also a console so that can help you. Like you can see here the errors, if there are errors. And that's the consent. And I can agree, and then I see something that is called the commitment page, which we might talk about later. And the participants simply commit to be good participants, and perhaps it works. And then that's just the introduction. That's another page. So for instance, this page, well, that's the introduction for the IIT. And this is this file. Let me show it to you. inst.iit.jst. Now you see that right? You came back with me to that tab. Okay, that's great. So that's this file. And currently you don't know how to edit that, but the idea is that those files become the study. And I can continue. You can see in a second an IIT is going to load. And here's the IIT. I'm going to skip it. Well, one important thing is, how do you skip blocks in the IIT? You're going to create a lot of studies with a lot of IITs, and you don't want to run the IIT each and every time. So basically, with tasks that I created, and the IIT is one of those tasks, you just need to skip a block. You press escape and then enter. So what I do here is space, escape, enter, space, escape, enter, and so on. And here's a questionnaire. I'm going to decline to answer all the questions. And that's the debriefing. So we ran the study. And how did we do that? We went to the EXPT file and pressed play. Now, that's not what I usually do. And the reason is caching. The browser might sometimes not know that sometimes it's not going to read the latest version of your file. So let's say I'll change something in the file, and then I want to see the change. If I run it here from play, sometimes it's not going to work. I don't know exactly when, but sometimes the browser will decide, I don't need to request that page again. I already ran it once. It's on your computer. I'm going to run that. But I made some changes. I wanted to read it. So that's why I usually don't use this play. So one thing that I can do, I can right-click the EXPT file, and then I have a menu. I need to scroll down, and I have copy launch URL. And I can either Control-C, use Control-C, or just press that, and I now copied that. Now, can anyone guess what I'm going to do with whatever I copied, with what I have in my clipboard? Please guess, because I cannot show it to you.
Incognito?
Yes. So what I need to do is to open an incognito browser. The thing is that I'm going to press Control-Shift-N, That's the way to open that, but you're not going to see it, right?
Well, one simpler way to do this, you can just right-click on the play button and select open an incognito window.
Can you? Yeah, okay. But you don't see it, right? You don't see the new window, but I can tell you that happened. I just don't want to switch the screen that I'm sharing with you. But you know, the study is running right now in incognito. And the idea is that incognito does not use the cache. So you can also clear the cache every time, you know, it's like clear history every time you run a study, but it's much easier to run it in incognito. Now there's another way to do it. Let's go back to the slides. Yeah, that's how we create a study, creating a task. Okay, here is the show files URL. So you see it, right? And you can see the address bar. The address bar is has a special format. I hope you can see it right now. So you define the username, in this case YABA, and then the study name, which is Workshop IIT1. And then you can see the show files. And it's just a way to share with others as well, because I can just send you now in the chat. Let's do it. Let's see. You can share. Oh, yes. Okay. So now you can, I hope, click it and you can get to it as well. No? Although but you did get it in the chat, right?
No, I actually did not get anything in the chat.
Oh, you know what? I only emailed Bethany.
Yes, I got it.
Yeah, yeah, it wasn't for everyone. Yeah.
I'm in.
Now all the rest got it as well, okay? Yeah, it's a beginner mistake in Zoom. And now if you want, you can right-click and run in incognito, but you don't have to run in incognito, right? Because we didn't change anything. And now all of you can run the study. And so you can see that's how you can share a study. If you want your collaborator or your advisor to see your study, you can simply use the show files URL. That's the easiest way to do it. There are other ways to do it as well. So let's go back to the dashboard. And remember, I told you that there are a bunch of actions that we can use when we are in a study. And that's the menu here. So we can delete the study. Let's not do it right now. We can rename, duplicate. That's important. Why is that important? Because that's the way you're going to create studies. No one starts studies by, you know, just creating a new study and then typing the one file after the other. You always duplicate the previous study. I guess that you already know that if you created studies in the past in whatever program you used, you always start with a previous study. Lock study is not very interesting. You just lock it and then you're not going to edit it. If you're afraid that you might do it and you're, you know, and you're happy with your current state of the study. And then let's go to sharing. If I go to sharing, then I can create. Let's evoke it. I can create a public link, and let's try and share that link with you as well in the chat. Not only with Bethany. Yeah. Okay. So now if you click it, what happens? So it looks like you open the dashboard, but really you cannot edit anything, I hope. You can just run the study from there. So that's another way that you can share your study. The nice thing about sharing is that you can also add a new collaborator. So if I know your username, I can add you as a username, and I can also give you the permission to edit the study. The only thing is that, you know, it's pretty useful. Like you're going to create a study and then you're going to have a problem and there's someone who's more experienced than you and can help you. So you're going to add them as a collaborator and they can edit the file. But you need to know that we don't have any way to control versions. So if you edit the file and another person edit the file, I don't know what's going to happen. I mean, probably not good things. So the way to do it, if you want someone to help you and you want to give them a permission to edit your files, you need to tell them, I just gave you the permission. I'm not going to change anything. Tell me when you're finished with helping me, and then I'm going to change stuff. So
I think if you try to save it when someone else has already saved edits, it'll give you a warning that someone else has saved it and won't let you save.
Okay, so Andy is more hopeful than I am. But Andy, what happens if, let's say, I save it and then someone else changes another file? You know, you make a bunch of changes in different files.
Yeah, it's only at the file level.
Yeah,
it could break in weird
bad
ways.
things can still happen.
Different
Yeah.
files.
Okay. So even if you're optimistic regarding our technology, as Andy is, still not recommended to edit stuff while someone else edits stuff. Okay, let's get back to the study. So I showed you the show files. I showed you pretty much a lot of it, but let's go to my PowerPoint. It can help me know what to do next. Oh, okay. There was one thing I wanted to show you. So let's go back to the dashboard, and you can see that there is a play button often. Like right now, I'm on the explicits.js file, and there is a play button. If I'm going to press play, it's going to play only the questionnaire. So that can be useful. Like if you're changing the questionnaire, if you trust your browser not to read from the cache, that can be very useful. It doesn't always work. Like pretty much it works only if you have a task that does not depend on other tasks in the study. So many times, so let's say I try to run the IAT. I'm going to try and run it, but I don't see anything. Now, well, I do see something, but it doesn't load. The study doesn't load. And you remember, previously it did. So let's explain why it doesn't load. Let's use F12. If I press F12, I see you. These are the developer tools. I think F12 work with Firefox and with Chrome. I don't know about Safari, but you can see there are a bunch of stuff that, I don't know what it means, but I do know that it says that image not found. So I have a problem with the images. For some reason, it doesn't find the images. And the reason is that I try to use the play button, and the play button doesn't know how to read the images because I define where to get the images from in another file. And it runs only that file. So in general, usually the play is not going to help you much, running just one task, but sometimes it might. So that's why we have it here. The next thing that I want to show you is how to download data. So here we have this data downloads, and we can go. And then remember, I told you that we need the study ID for that. So in this case, I tried it a bunch of times. So here's the study ID, and I request data. Now, there are a few things I can do here. Like I can choose the database. If we're developing, we're going to use development. If the study is running, you're going to use production in order to get the study. And you can also control the dates. Usually, you're not going to do it. Usually, you just want all the data. And then I'm going to ask for it, and it's going to be downloaded, and I can get it. Now, you need to get used to the data format for a few months until we change it. So we had the same data format for, I don't know, more than a decade, I'm sure, about 15 years, I think. And let me show you a bit about it. Yeah, so for instance, that's the IAT in an Excel. But you can see that's the IAT, and it has been for many years. And that's the format for an explicit, for the questionnaires. And, many people have processed data before you from using these data formats. So don't create your own scripts. Ask other users, older users to send you their scripts. I guess we have, I bet we have in SPSS and SAS, but most people nowadays use R, and we have a bunch of R scripts that can help you. Okay, was there anything else I wanted to show you? I saw earlier that there was something about skipping. So I already showed you that we can use escape and enter in order to skip a block in implicit measures. You can also many times use escape and right arrow or left arrow to just skip a task. Like if you're now in a questionnaire, you don't want to finish the questionnaire, press escape and then the right arrow, and that will skip, but only if in the manager file. Let's go to the manager. Okay. Only if in the manager file I think what I need to do is to say something like add settings skip to. So, you know, you all are going to have this study in your user very, very soon, like in 25 minutes. We're going to have this study in your user. So remember, always have this line, and then you can easily skip tasks when you debug, when you test your studies. Was there anything else I wanted to show you? Yeah, I want to tell you that you must check your data in advance. You know that from running other studies. The only thing is that in Project Implicit, you can get like hundreds of participants in a day, and it's you don't want to waste this resource. So please check your data in advance. Make sure that you have all that you need. Another thing that you need is to check your study in a laptop. I recommend that strongly. Many of us use desktop computers when we develop our studies, but most of the users probably, well, at least a chunk of them use a laptop with smaller screens. So check your study, see that it looks fine even in a laptop. Another thing to say is that in a few months, we're going to change the researcher dashboard. There is a new version, and we're hoping that everyone will be able to use it in really just a few months. But often when we think that something is going to be ready in 3 or 4 months, it takes longer than that. And many of you would like to create studies before that. So that's why we're going to teach you how to use this researcher dashboard. And it will have a few differences, like there will not be any EXPT files anymore. The data structure is going to be different. It's going to be more flexible, but again, your script's not going to work. You need new scripts for that. And there will be a different process how to add studies to the research pool. Now, I know that not all of you use the research pool, but those of you who will use the research pool, Project Implicit research pool, and in general, these are people who are affiliated with labs in the scientific advisory board, then there will be some new processes how to do that. In general, the rest of this talk is about the research pool, but I know that some of you are not using the research pool, so I'm not going to say much about it. But in general, let me use those 5 minutes that I have to show you a bit of that. So that's the website, that's implicit.harvard.edu. In this case, it's the development website, but we have the same thing, online for everyone to use. And people can register here. And when they register, they need only to give us their email address, and that's my email address, if you believe me. And then they complete a study that asks about them. So that's like if you have in your university pre-screening, in which you can know some details about all of your all the participants in your participant pool in your university. That's the same thing. Like that's something that many participants will have. Now they don't have to answer anything. Like I can just submit and not answer anything, but many of them do answer. So you might have some information about them, even if you didn't ask about them. So that's important to know. And then they get to the research pool, and here is the current research pool. You can see about 4 active studies running here. Most of them for my lab. That's what I see here. And participants are going to be assigned randomly to one of those studies. And one of those studies allow participants to participate over and over again, because we have many, many conditions, and we always make sure that we have a background study, a study with many, many conditions, so participants can participate in that study over and over again. But that's the research pool. And those of you who will create studies for the research pool will need to know how to do that. So there are a few different rules about how to create studies for the research pool, and they appear in the main document of the workshop. There are a few links for everyone who's going to use the research pool. You should read that and learn what your study must include. After you completed the study, you will also submit it for review. So if you missed something, the person who reviews those studies, which is Carly Beth Hawkins, she's going to tell you about that, but really do please read the instructions. They appear in the main workshops document. And I think that's all that I wanted to tell you. I think there's also a link for this to this presentation in the main document. And you can see that here I added the most important links for those of you who are going to create studies that are going to run in Project Implicit Research. So let's have a look at, I think I would like to see with you the workshop's main document. In the meantime, does any of you have questions? Anything? Okay. So let me see with you. So this is the main document for this workshop, and you all have the link to it. And you can use it in order to get to exercise.
There's just a question in the chat.
Oh, really? In the chat, yeah. Will you have access to the slides? I thought that I gave you, all of you. So if you're clicking this one in the workshop, you don't have access? Okay, I'll make sure that you'll have access to it. Now, do you have access to the exercise? So the first exercise, I think it's going to be your first study. What you need to do is to go to the researcher dashboard with your user, and then, well, let me show it to you. Why not? You need to go to the researcher dashboard. In the meantime, you can already start logging into the researcher dashboard. And I'm going to share the screen with you again. Okay. And now you can see here, there is show all my studies, but you can also see all the public studies. Anyone can make their study public, and then everyone can see your study. And in this case, my study, Workshop IIT 1, is a public study. If I'm going to type it in, I'm not going to see it because you cannot see your own public studies. But can anyone confirm that you can see it? Yeah, okay. And then you can duplicate it and run it and see the data. And I'm going to, I think, although it's very, very simple, let's try and use break rooms.